Hello, good morning and happy Tuesday 10 at 10. I am your host, Richard Charpentier from Baking Innovation. And every Tuesday, you know the format, we get questions that are being sent to Bakerpedia, and we have 10 minutes to answer all your questions. So let's get started. So first question, someone asked about burger buns and they're getting blisters on the buns and they want to know what is the cause or the root cause of those things. So it could be several things. It could be the fact that your dough is over oxidized, and oxidation, you're putting too much of ascorbic acid. It's an oxidizing agent. So, based on the formula, could solve you have the wrong dough conditioner within your burger buns, or it could also be that your proof box is not set properly and therefore causing blisters on the top. So not seeing the picture, but that's a start for you. Remember, it could be over oxidized. It could also be the wrong choice of dough conditioners, or your proof box is not set up properly. So moving on to the next question. I've noticed that frozen doughs that one buys in the supermarket, the frozen raw, are very hard to stretch out compared to fresh dough made from scratch. Even when thawed and brought to room temperature as directed, the dough will still want to snap back, so meaning too much elasticity. And does it have something to do with any additives the manufacturer put in a similar product to the ascorbic acid you speak about here? Any suggestions using this type of dough? So the key is when you're buying frozen dough, a frozen manufacturer, once they make a dough that you buy at the grocery store, remember, their goal is not to do any fermentation, and they usually mix very cold doughs. So they stay lower temperature and then they freeze it almost right away because they do not want to get the yeast to start activating into it. So their goal is to stop anything to move right away. So once you get a dough, you basically get a dough that was just mixed, processed, and then might need some more floor time and fermentation as you would do at home. I would, if you have a small, give it more time. Try to put it in different temperatures, and look for a different manufacturer, because you have a lot of manufacturers of frozen dough pizza. If you look on the back, they are putting some type of reducing agent such as L-cysteine, which would be great, or yeast extract, which would allow for the dough to basically be more extensible, as the dough you have is too elastic. So remember, gluten performs two functionalities, mostly elasticity and extensibility. So and each gliadin and glutenin are both different amino acid chains, representing what gluten is. And in this one, this a little too much. So you're going to have to experiment with it. Give it some floor time, but if it snaps back, it's basically too high of a protein, no fermentation time, and probably underhydrated. Those would be my guess of why you're seeing that. But good question. Thank you for sending it. Next question. Hello, I would like to start a burger shop project in Mexico. I'm considering baking bun first in my house, so I could have different and unique types of buns in order to make my own reputation. My question to you is, what should I do in order to make this happen? I want to create a differentiate my buns to the other. Well, that's a great start. It's great to see people like you, trying to say, hey, we want to be different. And in order to be different and what to do, it has to do a lot with where you live and where you reside and what ingredients do you have available to you. because the first and most important ingredient other than the water is going to be your flour. What kind of flour can you get? Can you find the right flour? And what kind of other ingredients can you add? And if you think, a burger bun for most of the people, it has to do with how nice and soft it chews, but also the fact that once you put a patty, a beef patty, or anything with grease, it's not going to break your bun. So your bun has enough resiliency to hold it. When you put the sauce and the cheese, then you can eat it without falling apart. So that's going to be a good bun. It has to taste good. It has to be different from a flavor or maybe a look. Maybe it's a square bun. Maybe it's a bun. You have to be creative and using maybe a flair of Mexican flavors. Maybe it's using different spices that people don't find in the buns. So that's what I would recommend for you. Start simple, but go in your kitchen and create things that you'll have your family and maybe your neighbors and friends say, hey, this is amazing. And you'll know when people love it. But it's going to take a lot of different trial and error until you get there. But again, good to see people being creative with bakery items, and good luck with you. Now for the last question, it's about shortening and donuts, and someone is asking what is the best shortening frying we can use to make donuts, and what is recommended about frying techniques. So when making donuts, it's very important to understand what kind of fat you're going to use. And because not all fats are creating equal, they all have different melt point, smoke point, and stability when you use a fat. So if you do something at home and you make a donut, it's a project, it's a Sunday, and everybody's going to say, hey, great, the donut, and basically you're going to use the oil once, maybe twice, that's it. But if you're planning on having a shop and frying every day, what is the stability? Most of the time, it is about the saturated fat that are added to the fat to raise up the melt point, such as stearic, palmitic acids will be added to fat, to fry fat, to be more stable. And there's a certain amount of basically saturation based on the manufacturer, and that you can request once you start talking to the fat manufacturers about how stable it is. And also to have a program where every, if depending on the size of the fryer, if it's a commercial fryer, small fryer, but how often do you clean your fryer? Because the residual after you fry, which is starch and any particulates that will fall into the fryer, that's what will create free fatty acids. And the more free fatty acids you have in your fat, then you get to the point where now you can turn into rancidity, because free fatty acids are radicals. So if it's not being cleaned, then you're going to have a nasty oil, and it's going to, no matter how good of a donut you start with, it's going to be a pretty nasty taste later on. So it's important to realize, most of the fat today used for frying are derived from palm. I've seen palm mixed with some other vegetable fats for frying, but you have to think of a fat that works for you, where you live, and you have easy access, and you can, again, rotate. But remember, when frying fat, it's always good to basically seed a fresh fat with old fat. There's a lot of great articles you can find through either AIB or online about what to do with fried fat and how to maintain the best stability so you create consistency within frying product. So, but again, thank you. That's all for today, my friends. So it was great, again, great questions, and we'll see you next week. And again, happy Tuesday, 10 at 10.